Alright, King Kong. King Kong vs. Godzilla. King Kong vs. Godzilla is the third film in the series, and already things are looking up. After a good 7-year break, it was about time Godzilla finally made his comeback. This time, finally entering the world of color. With a brand new design and an opponent who was a fresh new breed of beast. King Kong. Yeah, the 8th wonder of the world himself. 30 years after his debut film, he was still on top of the cultural zeitgeist at the time, pretty much cementing him in the DNA of cinema as an absolute legend of the medium. In that time, however, Kong really wasn't getting many roles. All he had were the original and Son of Kong, a good but albeit lesser film than its predecessor. This is where Willis O'Brien comes in, the special effects director of King Kong and many other special effects films of the time. He had this idea of Kong fighting a monster made by the dubious little creature that was Dr. Frankenstein. Actually, it was Frankenstein's grandson. It was this amalgamation of several different African animals combined into one single abomination of nature, who was taken to San Francisco to then escape his confinements and do battle with King Kong, who before this somehow survived his fall from the Empire State Building and was transported back to Skull Island to then get captured again by Carl Denham to then be displayed in a stage show. Again, the two would fall off the Golden Gate Bridge while fighting each other, which would have been kind of bitchin' to see. Still, the idea was rough around the edges in my opinion. It would have been entertaining, but it's undeniably pretty contrived and antithetical to the original Kong's message of human beings being blissfully negligent of the consequences of their naive decisions. Carl Denham being involved with anything after Son of Kong is a little odd. He already went through his arc. Anyway, I'm getting carried away. The idea was pitched around with no one really giving a shit until it was passed to Tohjo, unbeknownst to O'Brien. Tohjo then just replaced Frankenfock with Godzilla and didn't give credit to O'Brien in any way. And, well, it's interesting to know Godzilla literally killed someone for real. However, in my opinion, a film with these two monsters duking it out just visually and thematically makes more sense in general. East versus West, America versus Japan, a rematch decades in the making. It is directed by Ishiro Honda, right? King Kong vs. Godzilla. Directed by Ishiro Honda, King Kong vs. Godzilla is a refreshing, colorful, and lively entry in the franchise, one that would set a profoundly important foundation for how Godzilla films will be treated from here on out. I'll be talking about the original Japanese version here. The plot involves a pharmaceuticals company really reaching for ratings. The boss of the company's TV station forces 2 of his employees to go to Faroe Island, so they can look into a mammoth evil spirit, quote-unquote, that they heard was there, all for ratings. Meanwhile, Godzilla has reawakened from the icy slumber that he was put in back in Godzilla Raids Again. A cool nod to continuity, mind you. Kong is found kidnapped, only to escape, and it's up to our heroes to find a way to stop both kaiju from destroying Japan as they know it. Taro Takashima, Kenji Sahara, and Yu Fujiki make a fun trio of male characters, especially the first two. Miehama and Akiko Wakabayashi do their best with the material they're given, even though really there isn't much for them to do. Ishiro Arashima as Mr. Tako steals the show, however, as his cartoonish performance is genuinely really charming and pretty funny, which is a good segue to talk about this film's tone. Unlike Godzilla Raids Again, the film's tone is dead set on being fun, lighthearted, and entertaining. All the characters are cartoons really, which is undeniably very fun to watch. However, this does not mean that they're poorly written or poorly acted. In fact, everyone in the film plays their roles earnestly. Although a fair amount of dialogue is lighthearted and comedic, it's still solid. It doesn't lessen in quality because of its change in mood. People still have regular conversations, civilians still live regular lives, and the human banter, while not necessarily what you came here for, is perfectly fine and well paced. While the characters aren't by any means as interesting as the 1954 movie's characters, they're enjoyable leads. You don't mind letting them hold your hand through the movie. The entire film, except for a few spots that go on a little too long, goes at a slow and steady pace overall, not just the dialogue. It's a surprisingly brisk walk through the park with this film. Conflicts escalate steadily, and the film is in no rush to pump ceaseless action into your retinas unlike more modern day flicks do. However, I do have to admit, in the scenes that last too long, like the native dance scene or some military scenes, more action actually would have benefited the film greatly. You can't help but want the movie to just hurry up a little bit sometimes. This is a trend that will continue throughout the years. The monster action is left either for the end or for fleeting minutes within the film itself. In order to successfully achieve that without boring your audience, you need interesting or thought-provoking characters. The ones that we have here, though, simply don't have enough juice all the time to keep you engaged. If the film had more action scenes in between, then the characters' flaws wouldn't have been as noticeable. With the film's tone and goal, the balancing act between monsters and humans could have been done a little better. Also, just because I wanted to talk about it, this film is old, and there are really great scenes that still look and sound fantastic to this day. But its age shows in some aspects. For instance, the depictions of the natives of Faroe Island. For the most part, they're generic islander stereotypes, which in this case isn't really a problem given the movie's lighter tone. But what can be problematic to some people is the blackface they use for some characters. Personally, I genuinely don't really care all too much. It was 1962, it's a product of its time. But things like that, if you're not used to seeing very old movies like this, may be strange to new viewers. Plus, to restate, it was 1962 Japan. Do you really think Puertorriqueños like me were laying around for Tohjo to hire? I didn't think so. Note that just because the film takes itself less seriously than the last two doesn't mean the film has no stakes. Every character realizes how scary these situations really are. Godzilla Awakening sends Japan into a panic, and his complete ram through defenses is actually really frightening here. His presence is a huge deal to the Japanese public, and Kong's unpredictable nature sends the characters and country into a whirlwind of uncontrollable predicaments. This is not an artsy-fartsy movie. Much of its cinematography is just getting the job done. Really, the only shots that truly beg for attention are the ones with monsters in them due to the inherent sophistication of such a shot. Making rubber-suited men look large takes an immense amount of proper lighting, proper angles, and proper frame rates. Akira Ifukube just fucking kills it with the soundtrack. Just ba 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 ba, great tune after great tune, especially the absolutely haunting main theme. I get goosebumps every time. It's the perfect music to sum up the colliding of two unfathomably powerful creatures, fighting to the death. Winner takes all. Fucking love it. Speaking of said creatures, Godzilla in my opinion just steals the show here. He's still just as threatening as he was in the original. Color really adds a layer of scale here. Same thing with the wide angles here. They really work, and although some effects are a little wonky compared with the realism Tsuburaya has done in his other work, it's functional and it's fun. Unfortunately, Kong looks like dog shit. I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but Kong's dead fish-eyed head and banana arms do not look very good. His roar is pretty cool though, pretty distinct. I like both the original roar and the new one. They both work. The fight between Godzilla and Kong is classic. It defines the word classic. It's so satisfying. They're just like bah, bah, boo, non-stop, uninterrupted. And they really go at each other. Like this fight has the same class as like a street fight. It's just brutal. It is absolutely just brutal. Look at the fire, yo. This film, even though it's flawed, is a great monster movie, and more importantly, it's a solid movie to begin with. A consistent and well-paced script, fun characters, colorful atmosphere, and high-stakes monster fights make King Kong vs. Godzilla an entertaining ride. It stands up to scrutiny, and its flaws generally add up to what essentially amounts to, heart palpitations, and the film's lighthearted attempts at making fun of unchecked capitalism is pretty funny. Due to this movie's undeniable departure from the original's grim atmosphere, I'd like to make a distinction between two different types of Godzilla movies that these two movies have and will continue to spawn. There's the type of Godzilla film that's meant to be taken seriously, and is typically meant to be social commentary on something. Those are meant to be what I'm gonna start calling an artful Godzilla movie. But the other kind of film is a Godzilla film that's main goal is to entertain you with action scenes and or fun scenarios with humans and monsters. These films are something I'm going to call Clash House. Artful Godzilla films and Clash House Godzilla films are very different, but there is a gray area. These distinctions will allow us to see what each film's goal is and to judge it based on that. Reviewing these movies is going to be a lot more complicated than I thought. What the fuck did I just do?